Tata's or any factory, or Maruti or any other factory, it's impossible today to manufacture without CAD/CAM software. Impossible. I still wonder, in fact, I've studied a little bit, I still wonder how Ford could manufacture the first car in 1912 without, CAD/CAM. There was still bill of materials, and there were still levels, and there were components and sub-assemblies and so on. It is very, very difficult to manage, because there are 29, 30, 50 levels of bill of material. At each level there are sub-assemblies, components and so on, hundreds of them. It's enormously difficult to keep track of various, and each one has a version, for each one there's a decision of make or buy. For each one there are vendors which are knocking on your doors with a variety of designs and so on. So it's extremely difficult and complicated to keep track of all these and to arrive at a machine which is to release in the market, and also arrive at what future models would look like, right? But again, before CAD/CAM, there was people used to draw with T-square, and so all the draftsmen were jobless. So with BPR, the business, the IT said to businesses that I will show you how you do business differently, completely differently, in a revolutionary fashion. You use me, otherwise you will be obliterated. You will be thrown out of business. It's not that you can just sort of survive, because competition will kill you. If General Motors uses IT and Ford doesn't, Ford will be out of market. And that thought, the Americans in the first place in 1980s was picked up by Americans, and then hundreds and thousands of applications started developing in America. That's why there was a huge demand for programmers in America. Indian IT companies, of course, picked up that signal. I was in Patni then, and Infosys was, Narayan Murthy had left Patni and started Infosys. I sat in the same chair and ran Patni for 11 years. We all used to go to America and then sell, and then many people then went to America, and then 1980s, 100,000 people went to America. And then 1990s was an era of internet, the offshore centers were formed and so on. So that's history. What is likely to happen in tomorrow's world? As Abdul Kalam has said, that tomorrow's century, that is his current century, is going to be dominated by 3 T's. Information, IT, BT and NT. Information technology, biotechnology and nanotechnology. And all the 3 T's, I mean the BT and NT, the core again, or the driving power will be again information technology. Illustrate that by one example. Of course the sizes will come down, as you know, of processors and chips and so on and so forth. The power will increase according to Moore's law. There is a limit to this, and those who are interested in physics will probably realize that there is a, the wavelength of light is a limiting factor. But with nano technology and various other technologies, that might be surmounted. But by 2025, it's likely that we'll probably reach a limit by beyond which you can't increase the power of the computing and reduce the size. So we're approaching that limit. At the same time, the power, even by then, by that year, the power will be tremendous. I mean, the small computer will have power of many erstwhile mainframes and stuff. Now, what is likely to happen? When I used to talk about futurism a few years back, people used to look at me with disbelief. They don't any longer, because a lot of what I'm going to speak is already happening. For instance, I used to talk about flying cars, and people said, flying cars? How is it possible? If cars will need a runaway, right, for flying. If cars start having a runaway at Rankala, for instance, every car, and then starts taking off, it will be a chaotic situation, it will be a mess. But then helicopters don't need a runaway. They can take off from where they are. So why can't cars fly? I have several books on flying cars. There was a huge research started several decades back. Now in New York, a few years back, a flying car has been unveiled. I'm sure you know this. The price is around 3-4 crores. So if you want to buy it, you can go ahead and buy it and maybe fly. I don't know what RTO will do in the air and whistle, etc. But again, as the time will progress, there's always a time gap between when the technology comes on the horizon, is invented, and the technology becomes accepted, commonplace, and socially affordable. There's always a time gap. With historically, the time gap also is shrinking. Earlier there was several decades, now it is shrinking a lot. So in a few years, I guess there will be a flying car and so on. When I used to talk about, several things, and like for instance, what's likely to happen in financial industry. There's a very good lecture on YouTube by Nandan, on Nandan Nilekani, on YouTube. Please go, listen to it. I used to talk about this 15 years back. And Nandan, in fact, feels that it's likely to happen in 5 years. What's likely to happen? All notes, coins, credit cards, debit cards, checkbooks, all will vanish. There's no need. With Paytm, of course, people have already started seeing the elements of this. But before that, maybe just 5 years back, when I used to speak about this, people used to look at me with disbelief. Because on mobile, mainframe, mini, micro, desktop, palm top, wrist top. Now, of course, I'm sure there's a wrist top, and a watch can have a computer, etc. But even mobile phone can have your bank balance in zeros and ones. So when you go to a shop, you buy a shirt and say, what is your account number? So key in the account number. What is the price? 800. So key in 800. His account will be increased, which is credited in accounting terms, and my account will be reduced, which is debited in accounting terms. And that's it. Of course, there are security issues, and people talk about what will happen to security, but security issues have not stopped people from using e-banking, for instance, or ATMs and hundreds of other things up to now. So there will be always Chor Sipai game that will continue. There was a 64-bit DES algorithm which was broken, then there was 128-bit RSA algorithm came into existence. Now there will be new algorithms and so on. So all that will continue, but I am reasonably certain that the usage of all that will continue. Now with that, there will be no necessity of checkbooks and credit cards and debit cards and so on. They will all vanish, and Nandan probably feels it will happen in 5 years. 5 years, you probably won't see. So there is no notabandi and all that. Nothing will happen. Of course, I probably feel that it will happen in the West first, and it will take a while to arrive in India. But that's coming. What will happen? The second, I'm trying to give you a picture of a long-term picture of what's likely to happen in this century. You can always collapse that as to what's likely to happen in the next few decades and so on. Normally, when I address the students, and I don't see students here, but when I address students, I normally tell them that you need to be aware of all these, because in your lifetime or career time, which is like 30, 40 years, many of these things will have already happened, or you will see them partially happening, and I think you must be aware of this. But since you teach the students, I'm certain, I feel that we must be aware of what's going to happen, what's likely to happen. And most of these things might appear as science fiction, but I'm reasonably certain that they will happen sometime in this century. Whether it will happen in a decade, whether it will happen in 50 years, I don't know. I'm not even saying they should happen. I'm not sort of giving a value judgment, ethical judgment about it. But I can clearly see that they will almost definitely happen. Point number 2. All offices worldwide will become museums. Because there is no need for you to go to the office. And this is not science fiction. The teleworking has increased enormously in the West today. In Europe and America, is increasing by leaps and bounds every year, decade. When I go to the office, what do? I work. Or at least I pretend that I work. But when I work, what I do, I call my secretary and say, call 4 managers, and we all go to the conference room, north, south, east, west, etc., sales managers, and then we have a discussion. They all put up their PPT, each one's, north, the manager's sales have dropped. So I ask him the reason, and he or she gives reasons. You didn't allow me to hire a sales guy, or maybe allow me to give an advertisement, whatever the reasons are. But all the 4 people are sitting in the room, and we are discussing this. Now imagine another scenario. All 4 are sitting in their respective homes. I am sitting at my home. There's a video camera. Skype, we have all these experiences. There's a video camera, and there's a screen. At the center, I am depicted because I am the boss. In the 4 other windows, there are 4 managers. Now, every day when you watch a TV, this is happening. And the news, somebody talking from Calcutta, somebody speaking from London, somebody speaking from Tokyo, somebody speaking from Delhi. On some channels, there are 16 people fighting. That's another story. But normally, there are 4 people speaking, right? And the one who conducts this discussion also fights in the debate many times. But the point is, all these people are talking from different places. If that can happen, why can it not happen in the office? Tell me a single reason why you need to go to the office. Single reason. Data can be shared. You can speak, you can frown, you can fight. You can, give promotions, whatever. So there is no necessity, there will be no necessity for going to the office. There is no, files are all electronic, you can share, etc. Now the same thing is likely to happen in educational fields, and that's very interesting. There will be no necessity in future. In India it will take a while because in our classrooms there are 120 students, so it will be difficult because in the West, if there are 15-20 people in the classroom, the teachers at the center, there are 20 windows, and in each window there is a student is shown, and each student and teacher all sitting in their respective homes, there's a video camera, there's a screen, and so on. The same scenario. And teacher asks a question, somebody raises hands, he or she gives an answer which is obviously wrong, teacher frowns, all the other students are watching that the answer is wrong, and etc. All that happens in the real world can happen in this virtual world. There's no reason for it to actually travel. All experiments can be simulated. Literally, from chemistry, physics, whatever. In fact, in medicine, surgery, I don't know if you're aware, all surgery is now today shown on a video, which is the best training. Earlier they had to sort of use all kinds of charts and so on, The surgery is now videotaped and can be seen real time, and the kind of 3D pictures and so on are shown are enormous. Or even animation is enormous. Animation, for instance, changed the entire film industry and advertisement industry. I told you about 2D animation, with 3D animation, colors and so on. I mean, today you cannot think of any films or advertisement without animation. In fact, if there is a rule tomorrow not to allow animation in the industry, the first one to commit suicide will be Rajnikant. I mean, they just cannot exist, I can tell you. So basically it is impossible for him to survive. The point I am trying to make is, the life is going to change in the ways that you can't even think, and that is very, in the school, imagine the schools will vanish, they will become museums. Colleges will become museums, libraries will be all digital. So there is no necessity for a building for a library, no necessary building for a bank. Because when I work for a bank, my salary is deposited electronically. When I apply for loans, I apply electronically. All documents are sent electronically. They are checked, verified electronically. If the limit is higher, they are sent to higher manager electronically. There is a digital signature, he passes, and when money is sanctioned, is passed electronically. Then I go and actually spend it electronically. Just imagine the kind of work. It's not far away. Why should people get in the building which is called a bank? I mean, just imagine, in technology, if something can happen, something does happen, whether right or wrong, good or bad. Chemical weapons can happen, therefore they have happened, unfortunately. Nuclear weapons can happen, they have happened, unfortunately. So good or bad, if technologically something can happen, something has happened in history, and therefore that is frightening sometimes. So there is no necessity. If there is no necessity technically for people to get together, then they will not get together, right? If not now, maybe 30 years from now, maybe 50. But that's coming. Then there are arguments as to what will happen to social life of people if they don't get together in schools and so on. The counter argument given by many people is, in fact, that will save a lot of time, 3-4 hours in Bombay's case, maybe 2 hours in Pune's case, in Kolhapur also, I don't know, traffic jams, but maybe an hour at least in travelling to and fro. That will save that kind of time, which can be utilized in meeting people whom you are not meeting today. There's a family sitting at the dining table, they're not even talking, they're all using mobile phones, right? Sending messages, brother sending message in SMS to sister sitting across. That's the family life. I'm told there's a friend of mine who jokingly says, what is the definition of joint family? You know what is the definition of joint family? The definition of joint family is husband and wife stay together. That is the latest definition. So basically, the things have come to this pass. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that today people have no time to spend even their family, forget relatives and forget friends and forget, tomorrow if there are 4 hours at their disposal, I can form a group of, people like Ravi Shankar for that matter. I can go for walk, people who, walking club, swimming club, maybe philately, stamp collection. All kinds of things can flourish in the same time. So it depends upon, the point is, in that spare time you can meet the people that you want to meet. Today you have to meet people that you may not want to meet. That's the point of argument, that the counter argument people put. I mean, I won't get into whether good or bad, but it's likely to happen. The important thing is, like offices, robotics will play a major role, and automation. There will be enormous amount of automation in robotics, and there's a lot that I can talk about. I'm reading a lot about this. I think Ernst & Young of Boston Consulting has said that in the next 25 to 30 years, 68% of the jobs that we are doing today, 68% will vanish, which means they'll be doing something else. Doesn't mean they all will be unemployed, but many will be, I guess, but they'll be doing something else. In fact, just as an aside, in terms of economics, you may not be interested, the entire idea of UBI, which Arvind Subramanian put forward just before the budget, I don't know how many are aware, UBI is Universal Basic Income. The whole idea of UBI worldwide, in Belgium and many other countries, has taken roots because of this threat of automation making human work redundant. So what will people do and how will they live? So therefore, the basic income has to be guaranteed by government. This idea of UBI actually started there and is picked up by Arvind Subramanian of our government. So I think the automation, the threat of automation and robots replacing work, even in software industry, coding and testing is likely to vanish. The people already started slashing their staff in automation. So that's likely to happen. Transportation and travel. In cars, as I've said, there are flying cars will be there, there will be driverless cars, as Mr. Desai has mentioned. Uber has said in 5 years, declared driverless cars in 5 years. That's possible in America, I guess, or Europe or Japan, far earlier than in India. It's rather difficult right now, but even with drivers it's difficult. So, but then there will be cars which can prevent accidents because the sensors that will be there, and if there's an obstacle, the sensors will catch the distance. There are obviously sensors today which tell you distance, 0.5 meter, 1 meter, etc. So those can also send a signal to the brakes and avoid the. Then there will be trains of 600 miles an hour, and Bombay-Pune can be travelled in 10 minutes and so on. And that's not a dream. Today there are maglev trains existing, which run at 400 kilometers an hour. So they have to be refined, and the rails have to be changed, etc. I mean, it's just a matter of time and the money and so on. With biotechnology and nanotechnology, we are going to play havoc. Biotechnology, I'll just give you one example. There are 100,000 genes in our body, and the genetic sequence is important. The way we lead our life is as if, do I have 8-10 minutes? Yeah. Okay. So the way we live, in fact, is as if the genetic program evolves. It's only at a certain age that the child starts crawling. It's only at a certain age that the child starts walking. It's only at a certain age that the child starts speaking. And the other end, it's only at a certain age that you have wrinkles on your face and your hair turns grey and so on. It's as if there is a program, the way we write Java and C program, as if there is a program, the genetic program is being executed. Right? So understanding that genetic program was a great challenge. And there was a project called Human Genome Project, which is headquartered at a place near Washington. I visited that place, and hundreds of scientists used to work on that project to understand the human genome in a basic fashion. The target end date was 2003, but it actually was finished successfully in the year 2000. I was in America then. Bill Clinton came on the television. Amidst great applause, he announced that the project has been completed successfully thanks to computer simulation. Because of computer simulation, the project was finished much earlier. That's how IT and BT are working together. Now, the point is, if I understand the sequence, we have not understood it completely, by the way. It's so complex and interdependent on a variety of genetic sequences. But if I understand the genetic sequence, at least at basic level, why should I not be able to change it? The way I can patch the Java program or C program or C++ program or whatever, why should I not be able to change it? So if I change a particular sequence or particular gene, then I never will age. There will be no wrinkles on my face. My hair will not turn grey. I will be ever young. And my longevity, the lifespan will increase. There are various estimates, by the way. At the end of the century, the lifespan is certainly cross 100, but there are many other estimates who say after 200, 300 years, after 200-300 years, the lifespan, expected lifespan, many people say 200 years, 400 years. One scientist has said 1400 years. I don't know what that guy will do. But even if it is 200-300 years, how will you live? Maybe live 80, 100 years, maybe take a tablet, maybe drop dead for 20 years, then get up again, see other boyfriends, girlfriends, maybe restaurants, Chinese food, this food, and then maybe again enjoy different movies. Another 20-30 years, again take top tablets, drop dead for 20-30 years, again get up. I don't know, you will get bored, I guess. But that's the kind of life that people envisage leading to. The nanotechnology, as I think was very rightly said, there are nano robots, and there's a good research going on. I have a lot of details about what kind of research is going on in Japanese or American universities, California, etc. So it's not science fiction or dream. The nano robots, small robots, will actually run through your bloodstream, and they will monitor your sputum, your urine, your blood, your stool, your heartbeat, your just about every parameter. There is a running pathological laboratory within your body. If there's any wrong parameters, it will warn you. Worse parameters, it will warn your doctor. And if something really wrong, then it will call the hospital and the ambulance. So I think